Hello there, welcome back. Today I'm going to talk about Peacemaker, both season 1 and 2, which is the James Gunn written and partially directed show starring John Cena and a bunch of other people, which came out as a spin-off from the Suicide Squad that actually just got bigger and bigger, and there's now like a massive hit, and now Peacemaker's a massive character, and it's kind of the show that's kind of catapulted Cena from just being another wrestler turned actor to someone who actually has a presence in Hollywood. He's been in other films, but this is the one that people kind of go, oh yeah, he's Peacemaker. You know, and people have an affection for Peacemaker. That's a character people understand. And it's a character who's become part of the DCU, the new DCU under James Gunn. Now, I can talk about this show because the show's ended. There's 2 seasons. The story finished. It's going to go on to other things. Like Peacemaker's going to continue in other things. So a lot of the characters around him are going to continue other things. But this, like, almost like chapter 1 of this kind of character story is done now. So it's quite interesting. You can just go and actually just do a look at this show, and then there's more to come. So twisted history. Now, James Gunn, when he got fired from Marvel, came over to DC and did the Suicide Squad before he went back to do Guardians of the Galaxy 3. But during that time, he and DC got on very well. They were very happy with the Suicide Squad as he was making it, and they were just talking about was there any character you want to do anything with, and he said, "Yeah, Peacemaker. I think you could do something good with Peacemaker." Because he's a character in the film who was one of the villains, but there was a thing where Gunn saw that when Cena was playing him, there was more to him, that he could do more with this guy, that was more interesting, that they never had a chance to really get to in the film, because the film he had a supporting part. It was a very kind of colourful supporting part, but it wasn't like the main focus. So during the COVID lockdowns, Suicide Squad was in post-production and the Guardians was in pre-production, but everyone was kind of very slow because of COVID, so they couldn't really do much. Gunn, at that point, just because there was interest in Peacemaker, he wrote the first season of Peacemaker. He just wrote the first 8 episodes of that season, just while it was in 2020, while it was in lockdown. And so by the time we got to the end of 2020, the lockdown was starting to ease a little bit, and they'd found ways, like one of the Jurassic World films and Mission Impossible had found ways to actually do productions during COVID and stay safe. Like, they were the first 2 pioneers. Steven Soderbergh did stuff as well to try and find ways around it. So by that point, they'd found ways to actually isolate people and actually be able to do scenes together, and you could actually start making stuff again. So Peacemaker was one of the first things that went into production during COVID, using these new lockdown rules. So they shot it well, and Gunn shot some of the episodes, and they got other fixed for other episodes, but did that, then he went off to do Guardians of the Galaxy 3 after the Suicide Squad had come out, and then Peacemaker came out. But in that period, Peacemaker went into post-production, Suicide Squad came out. It did pretty decently, but it was mainly in streaming. So people, even though the film wasn't a big hit because it was released during COVID, a lot of people saw it on HBO Max, and it's one of those films that get a great word of mouth. Like, people were burnt from the first Suicide Squad, but once they had a chance to see this one, it was like, oh, this is what it should have been in the first place. And the word of mouth was great, and people were interested in this Peacemaker character because he was this oddball. So when his TV show came out, it just blew up. So basically what James Gunn did was he took Peacemaker and 2 of the supporting characters from the Suicide Squad, which is John Economist and Harcourt. And so Economist is this computer, big burly guy, computer played by Steve Agee, and Amelia Harcourt was like the more kind of more of a soldier, spy kind of person, played by Jennifer Holland, who's Gunn's wife. And they come in to be the support from the Argus, which is the big government thing for metahumans in the DC world. So it was like their punishment for going against the boss, Amanda Waller, played by Viola Davis, in that end of that film. It's like, you have to deal with this guy. So tough, you're screwed. So they have to go into the battle or deal with Peacemaker in this other squad dealing with this guy who's an ex-war criminal who leads it, and you've got Adebayo, who is the daughter of Amanda Waller, who's she's basically stuck. She's lost her job during the lockdown stuff. She's lost any income, so her mum says, go and just do the tech stuff, just go and do the administration of these guys for me, keep an eye on them, he'll get paid. And of course she gets into this world which she's not really used to, and ends up being stuck in a bunch of crazy plot. The idea is they brought Peacemaker in to be their assassin. Unfortunately, he's actually now starting to develop a conscience and start dealing with the traumas of his father. His father was this white supremacist scumbag played by Bob Patrick, who did lots of damage to this kid, and he's created this guy who never feels like he can live up to what his dad wants, doesn't really like his dad, doesn't really like what he's trying to become, and it feels like a total failure of dealing with him. So he lets that out against other people and just berates them all the time. But slowly over the episodes, he's starting to develop, okay, this is my coping mechanism. He starts to bond with Adebayo, even though his dad's a white supremacist and she's black. And he starts to actually question himself a little bit and realise there's a lot of emotional damage has been done, and it's starting to come to the surface. He's also got a friend called Vigilante, who's this weird dysfunctional kid, a young man basically, but he's in the mentality of a kid, he's in kid's enthusiasm. And he's a psycho killer who, with the name Vigilante, you can tell he doesn't mind killing people. And he's like, he thinks he's Peacemaker's best friend, even though he's not. But he's almost a stalker for him. But he is pulled into this whole thing because he can kill people, and they kind of need him as Peacemaker's falling apart. And they end up dealing with this invasion of these things called the butterflies, that are these butterflies who burrow into people's brains and possess them that way. Which is an absurd thing, but one of the things about James Gunn is he does not mind the comic books are absurd. He likes the absurdity. So, within his films and his TV shows, you actually get a sense of characters dealing with such situations, but taking them seriously enough, but also saying, what the hell am I dealing with? So, you can deal with the situation, but also know it's absurd. But he loves absurdity, and he plays it just right, just like acknowledging the absurdity, but also building up the threat of the bizarre absurdity. Have you seen Superman? It's the same thing. It's like some of the things that happen to Superman are absurd, but they're played straight, and as part of the charm is how absurd the world can be sometimes. So Gunn's got a kind of style that people, either you get it or you don't get it, either you're with it or you don't know with it, but it's a style that a lot of people like. And Peacemaker was kind of the show that brought that style to the DC world. They've already had it with the Suicide Squad, but this is the one that established it, because during this point it started to become apparent that DC wanted Gunn to be in charge of DCU. And I'm not sure if, I think the first show was out before it was officially named as the head, but it was I think it was a post-production when I was thinking about it. But by the time the second season came around, he was the head of DC. He was doing Superman. He'd written Superman, he was going to direct it. And he was in charge of the whole slate of DC film adaptations. So he's rebuilding DC from the wreckage of the DCE extended universe, which had Man of Steel and the Ben Affleck Batman, and was so dour and no one really liked it very much. You got odd things like Aquaman and Wonder Woman that did well, but they were like other directors who were given some space to do their thing. So Gunn is like now in charge, but he has to do Peacemaker season 2. He already agreed to do it. So it was a case of what he did with it basically was he expanded on what was the traumas of all these characters. He built up this group, which was basically Peacemaker, Adebayo, Hardcore Economist, and Vigilante. They were this little tight group. They were all weird, but they all understood each other. He also had an eagle called Eagly who could attack people. But they were this group who understood each other. And they kind of bonded, even though they were all dysfunctional, through this traumatic fighting these butterflies that actually turned out to be more dangerous than anyone thought. So in the second season, he kind of doubled down on all their traumas and all their problems, and the fallout from the first season where they went public with all the corruption that going on. So then, at the beginning of the second season, they're all like persona non grata with the intelligence agencies. Like Harcourt's been fired, Economos is working for the intelligence agencies, but he's in the kind of shitty jobs because no one trusts him. You've Peacemaker is actually kind of recovered quite well from his traumas, and he's still he's recovered from some of them, but he's still working on other ones. He still gets some relapses, so he's doing better, but he still get problems. Adebayo cannot get a job anywhere because she squealed on her mum and got her mum fired. Vigilante is just vigilante. He's still doing his job and still going around being a vigilante in a hard time. And he's stalking Peacemaker still for desperate for attention, but he also started bond with Economist and Adebayo. Though he wouldn't admit to Adebayo been bonding with her because she's a girl and he's essentially mentally 12. So they've all kind of progressed, and Hardcore's having it worse because she used to be a professional, now she cannot get hired, and she anger issues that were always there but now have come to the fore. Now she's been fired, and it's like you just watch them all in this traumatic mess. But also this is Gunn taking them to the next part of the story, so they go through hell in this season, but they come out of it in an interesting way. But it's kind of a testing ground. The second season is a testing ground. The first season, they were in a crisis and they all come up better than they thought they would. They were all dealing with a disaster, basically, and Peacemaker was dealing with his own problems. Now this time, everyone's dealing with their own problems. And it's like, everyone's much more dysfunctional. And they're all separated a lot of the season. And what's worse is Peacemaker has found... Right in the first season, he had this room where we kept all his stuff that was actually this weird dimensional tear that no one cared about. But now, after Superman, and there was all these dimensional tears in Superman, everyone's now paranoid about them. And Peacemaker's got one, and try to get it. And so Peacemaker's on the run from the start. But also the guy chasing after him is Rick Flag Sr., who was in Creature Commandos and Superman. And he's after Peacemaker's Peacemaker killed his son during the Suicide Squad under orders, but just because he's under orders doesn't mean Flag doesn't hate him. So Flag's after him for personal reasons and professional reasons. Peacemaker finds this other world where his father likes him. His brother is still alive because his brother was killed when Peacemaker was young by Peacemaker by accident during a fight that was prodded on by his father. So that's been a big trauma for him. So he finally re-engages with his brother and his father, and he's in a world where Peacemaker's actually a hero. And he's fighting villains and he's quite happy. Then goes back to his normal world and he's been hunted down, and he's like, well, obviously I'm better off in this world because this other world, my real world is a mess and everyone hates me, but this other world I'm actually in good shape. So he's being seduced by this other world where everything seems to be great for him. Meanwhile, his world's falling apart, but also all his friends are falling apart. Like, none of them can... Like, Adebayo, she's blown up her girlfriend, who can't take the fact she's into spy work. Economist is undercover a lot of the time and having to spy on his friends, and he hates it, and he's always trying to help them out. And basically there's a hunt on for Peacemaker. I mean, you get some new characters, all these new like Argus guys who are after them, And it's just this kind of weird mess of characters and weird plots of like different dimensions, different worlds, what's Flag up to, what's the motivations of Peacemaker and Harcourt. Peacemaker's falling in love with Harcourt. Harcourt's is not saying anything back. She's actually rejecting him, so he's stuck in that to an almost absurd degree because he's very needy and he hasn't really recovered from certain things. He finds all things people difficult. He gets on with certain people, but he finds, because of his past, he finds closeness difficult. As do everyone in that group. They all have those problems. Apart from Adebayo, essentially, she's much more relaxed, but she's got problems too. It's just that she's probably a much more normal upbringing. Everyone else is a bit more dysfunctional. But she develops problems too. But there's also characters like Judo Master, that small Asian guy who's good at martial arts and who's been their enemy for 2 seasons because he's always been employed by the villains. But he never sees it that way. He sees Peacemaker as always being the problem, not him. And there's a new character with Tim Meadows, who's like this guy who's in charge of the agents going after Peacemaker, and he's just weird. And he's trying to bond with Economist, and Economist is just like, because Economist is very socially awkward and has massive problems. So everybody is dysfunctional. But that's what makes the show work. And the idea that they, in both seasons, James Gunn tells stories that in a not a conventional way. There is a beginning, middle, end. I see how I keep on doing this. But it tells in a weird, eccentric way. So when you get to the ending, there is an ending that everything makes sense, but it's been told in an unconventional way where things come up, they're dropped for a couple of episodes, then they come back up. The way they do in life, the way that something is just laying there waiting for someone to bring it up. So he can construct his plots like with an idea that real life's messy. So even if you're doing pulp, life is messy, so eventually things will come up in ways you didn't expect, or ways that you had planned to avoid them, but they come up and screw you over anyway. So it's a very public that the ideal world turns out to be Earth X, which is this Nazi world that Peacemaker somehow never realised. So he ends up him and his friends in this Nazi world trying to survive before getting home and having to deal with all his problems realistically. And you find out why they want different dimensions, and it all sets up other stuff for the DCU. Now, the final episode ran into some issues with some people, because people thought they were going to get a big, massive, shootout or something. When in fact, the episode 7 was a shootout episode. Episode 8 was the epilogue almost of, there's still things that happen, still things to do, but it's essentially setting up where the characters are going. It sets up certain things that will be important later on in the DCU, but it's also setting up the characters, what they've learned after all their difficulties, what the damage has been to them, and it's basically them trying to save Peacemaker from himself, from all the kind of self-doubt and damnation of his focus on himself. But it's also a case of self-forgiveness. So the whole episode is really about characters learning to forgive themselves for bad decisions and learn to move on and say, well, what can we do with what we've done in the past, and how do we move on from that? So it's a dramatic episode rather than an action episode, which annoyed some people. It was like, we want to see Peacemaker fight his brother. We want to see Peacemaker fight this guy, fight that guy. And it's like, no, that's not what it is. And it's much more about decisions made and where you're going to go in the future after you've dealt with bad choices, which I thought really made it work, because it makes a series ending, not just a season ending, because it is a series that is the end of this series of the way these characters are together under the Peacemaker banner before it goes off to something else. It kind of is reminiscent of the end of Return of the King, where people are saying, oh, there's all these endings. It's like, yeah, but that's all that character stuff that you went through that need to pay payoffs. Sure, you might find some of them annoying to have so many of them, but it's like, You kind of needed it for you're ending a longer story, then moving the characters onto a different story, where a lot of the characters who are dysfunctional in this story end up learning to move on and actually use their trauma to form an agency that will actually fight against Argos and their very dubious actions and plans. And you have what Argos is up to as well, set up as a danger for the future. So you have lots of things set up, but also it's just like, are you going to go towards the Argos route of it, something's very dubious, or are you going to go to the route of the characters in this show that are like, no, we're going to fight this. We've already been destroyed by all these people, we're going to fight them now. So it is a very satisfying ending, but it's like, it's kind of, it's not what people wanted from a pulp show was something different from what the show was actually going to be doing. Which is a problem with endings sometimes, is like, the people making it are actually interested in the character endings, and the people watching it, or some of them, people like me actually like the fact it's a character ending. I think a lot of people like the fact it's a character ending rather than an action ending, but a lot of the more louder voices were much more like, oh no, you can't do this, blah blah blah, and it's like, no, you can. It's simple, you can do this. So yeah, Peacemaker is a nice little show. It's just it's nice if a show this eccentric and this R-rated, basically, because there's a lot of adult stuff in it and a lot of adult humour and swearing and nudity and things, can get made in a comic book world, and then you can go back to Superman. So you can do lots of things with this. I mean, it's basically an eccentric character driven pulp show that you can enjoy, and that's it. It's like, you either like it or you don't, and that's fine. If you don't like it, you don't like it. Tough. So I hope you enjoyed this video. That's me for now. I'll see you all later. Right, bye.